and welcome to part 6 of Blender 2.6, The Basics. In this video we're going to be talking all about box modeling. Box modeling is a process in which you take a simple 6-sided cube and you model it inside of edit mode to make it into any object you like. Of course, to do this you need to add and move around and push around and rotate and subdivide all the different faces and edges and vertexes that's in a cube to make the object that you like. Any object pretty much can be made out of a cube, and today we're going to be making a person. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to click on the splash screen to get rid of it, and as you can see we have our default scene here, a cube, a camera, and a lamp. I'm going to zoom in on the cube, and of course to go into edit mode I'm going to press tab, but before I do that I'm actually going to turn on my screen cast keys so that you can see them. How big should I make my text today? Maybe 80 and 56. I haven't figured out a standard size to make my text yet in my videos, but we'll get there. So let's go ahead and press tab to go into edit mode of the cube, and right away I'm going to press or go into face select mode so that I'm selecting just faces on the cube. Now all of my faces are selected right now. I can tell that because it's all orange, but I might just in case press A and then A again to make sure everything in fact is selected. Now the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to subdivide up this cube, and one of the main places you're going to want to look when you're in edit mode and you want to perform any action to change the geometry or the structure of the mesh, in other words to add or subtract or modify pretty much any of the faces or edges or vertexes, is by going to the specials menu, which is the W key. That's just a keyboard shortcut you're going to have to memorize. So it's the W key, brings up specials. I don't know why it's W, it just is. This specials menu holds a bunch of the most common things that you're going to be doing when you're in edit mode to make any shape you like. I'm going to be selecting the first option though, subdivide, and that's going to make a cut across all the faces that I had selected, which was all of them, once. So it makes a cut in all three directions. So it made a cut across, side to side, and front to back, across all of the faces. But before I change anything, I'm actually going to make, instead of just one cut in every direction, I'm going to make two cuts in every direction. And that's done down here on my tool shelf. Again, if you don't have your tool shelf, you can press T to make that come back. And if you're missing the side bottom panel, you can press this little plus icon and it'll come back. I'm going to change the number of cuts to 2. So my cube now looks like a Rubik's Cube. This cube is going to be my character's head, so of course we have to round it out. To round it out, I'm going to press A to deselect all, and I just want to select all the middle faces on each 6 sides of my cube. So I'm going to select this one, hold shift and select these two. I'll let go of shift and orbit around, and I'll hold shift again, and I'm going to right click and select the remaining 3. So now I have all 6 middle faces selected, and I'm going to press S to scale. Now because when you have, at least by default, when you have multiple things selected, the gizmo goes in the median point of all of those things. In this case I have 6 faces selected, all on the equidistant sides of a cube. So if I press S, it's going to scale out from the very middle of those things. And so it's going to scale out from the middle of the cube. Now if I had, I'm just going to press escape, if I had 2 selected on one side, the gizmo wouldn't be exactly centered. It's going to weight closer to or in other words, attract itself more towards the more dense selection of faces, in this case this side. So make sure you have one on every side selected for this to work. So I'm going to go ahead and press S to scale out my faces that are selected, and I'll press 1 to go to my front view, and maybe I'll just tweak this again. If you are in perspective mode right now, it looks really funny. So I'm in orthographic mode. I got a few questions about that in my last video series. Why does my cube look weird? Why does it look uneven? This angle looks different than this angle. You should be in orthographic and looking at it from the front or side or top view. Let's go ahead and make that as round as possible. But of course, we still have these corners sticking out. The 8 vertexes in the corner of the original cube. So I'm going to go into Vertex Select mode, and we'll do a shift click to get all of them. Of course, when I select the first one, I don't have shift selected. Let's go ahead and select all 8. Now it's the same thing here. I have 8 equidistant vertices selected, and so their median point is in the very middle of the cube exactly. So if I press S and scale down into the middle, I should be able to make a pretty good sphere. Now this is going to be my character's head, of course, so I got to figure out which side is the front. So I'm going to go to my front view, and I'm still in orthographic. So this is my character's front. I'm going to make a nose out of this middle face, so I'm going to scale it down to be quite small actually, and we're going to make kind of an Elmer Fudd cartoon nose. So what I might actually do is I might do a little extrusion, so I'll press E to extrude out, and then I need to look at this from a better angle so I can see. And I'll press S to scale this up. Again, Elmer Fudd's nose, it's kind of like a light bulb sticking off the front of his head, so we'll go out a little bit more and scale up. Maybe that's too far out. Extrude out again with the E key, and that looks pretty good to me. Of course, it is still square, and we will fix that in just a second. What I might do now is I might take down these two side edge or connected edges. I want to select these 3 with the Shift key, and then maybe these 3 as well with the Shift key, and I'm just going to move them down a little bit. And then what I might do is I might deselect. If I hold Shift and right click on an edge that's already selected, it'll deselect that edge. I'm going to move these down just to make them a little bit more on the side of the head. Let's go ahead and press Control R. Again, that's a loop cut, and you'll see that if you move your mouse around, it'll put in a kind of a squiggly edge because these sides are not all even, but this is still a loop cut. So if I click and put a cut right around here, that looks good to me. I'm going to press Control R again and do another loop cut right above that, because we're going to be making an eye and actually 2 eye sockets up here. The last time I made a video like this, I skipped through this entire section after I made a basic shape. I'm not going to do that in this video. We're going to go all the way through. It'll be a little bit longer of a video. Let's go ahead and pull out his cheekbones a little bit. So what I might do is I might I'll select both sides at the same time, and we'll pull out all 4 of those edges. And what we might do is we might do a cut around here. Maybe what I'll do now, I'll scroll up once, and so now I have 2 cuts, and I'll right click to put them in the middle. Same thing over here. I'll scroll up once, and I'll click and right click, and so now I'm going to go and select the middle face of each one, and I'm going to pull them both back a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do here is something a little bit funny. I'm going to actually take these 9 faces and round them out. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to look at them from the front, and I'm going to take the vertexes and try to make as much of a circle as I can, because there's a neat trick for making an eye socket, which is kind of extruded inward to make it look more like a nice, smooth, well-flowing eye socket. So we're going to make these kind of into a circle. So I'm just going to grab, that's what I'm doing right now, I'm grabbing the vertexes only from the front orthographic view. It doesn't really matter quite yet where I put these inside vertexes, but that's okay. Now I am kind of messing up my my nose base. What I might do is press Control R again and make a little loop cut here. Be careful about putting loop cuts or any 2 edges right next to each other. That can prove to be quite a hazardous thing to do, but we're gonna live dangerously here. Let's see if those 2 are about even. Sure, I really should have done that from the front view. Now in the next video I'm going to show you how to do both sides at the same time, so everything is exactly symmetrical, but in this video we're not going to be quite so accurate. So as you can see, maybe I'll do these 2 at the exact same time. So I'm getting more of a circle here, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for. Now I don't have, it's not exactly flat, but that's totally okay. what I might do now is select all of these faces that are in that socket, and I'm going to do something that you might not expect. I'm going to make it, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to match on the other side first, just so I can see exactly how I did it the first time. So this one needs to come in, that one needs to come in. And then I think I brought these ones all, they look a little bit farther down to me, especially that one. And let's bring these two a little bit more inward. And of course you can use shift click to make things go a little bit faster. There are more advanced ways of doing this, by the way. Of course, one video that I highly recommend you take a look at is do a YouTube search for Blender House Elf, like House Elf from Harry Potter. And you're going to see or find a video that's about 15 or 16 minutes long, and it's sped up quite a bit of somebody modeling, and I can't remember who it is, somebody modeling a house elf from Harry Potter in Blender, and it's really incredible to watch because they do start from a cube as well, but they use what's called soft select to move a bunch of things, a bunch of vertexes at the same time to speed up this process that I'm doing right now. Let's go ahead and move that one down a little bit more, and that one needs to go out. This needs to be more round. Sure. It looks okay to me right now. We're going to play around with it again in the next video. I'll show you how to make things totally symmetrical. I'm going to select that eye socket. We're going to move it over a little bit so it's kind of centered. And I'm going to scale it up and maybe push it back a little bit. This is going to be the ridge of his nose, so we'll actually make it narrower in a minute. Let's go ahead and select this kind of eye socket, and we're going to make it bigger and move it over a little bit and be a little bigger actually. Again, I'm not going for perfection here in this video, but you can spend more time obviously if you need. The first time you do anything, you can't really expect total perfection though. That one's a little bit taller, so I'm going to scale it down a little bit. That looks okay to me. Okay, so how you get an eye socket that actually looks like an eye socket is you extrude and scale. So on this eye, I'm going to press E, but then I'm immediately going to right click. So now I have that bad thing where I have a bunch of squares on my edges when I'm in face select mode, but I know this is the case right now, so I'm going to immediately press S, and now I can scale down this inner eye socket inside the new bigger outer eye socket. So I'll do this again on the other side so you can see, but right now I'm going to actually just make a slight, so I'm going to do about 4 or 5 steps inward. So I'm going to go about right there, and we're going to move this, we'll keep this one a little bit more forward. So I'll press E again and then right click and S, and the goal here is to kind of move inward gradually, creating a nice kind of slope inward. So E, right click, S, and the more we get inward, or the more we get to a smaller eye socket, the more will go inward. So E, right click, S, and as you can see, I'm kind of making an eye socket here. This by no means is a very good model at all, but you can kind of see where I'm going with this. This is how in some cases they would model an eye socket. So E, right click, and then S, and I'll pull it back on the y-axis again. We'll just leave it at that. So let's do this whole process again. I'm going to select, and by the way, sometimes there will not be little squares on the faces, and that's just because, well, I think it's really a glitch in Blender, but I think it's because the faces are not flat, because there are 4 sides on every face by default, kind of. A 4-sided face is not always flat. It's always divided into triangles, actually. So that's why the square might get kind of be in the background, in case you're wondering why you don't always see squares. Let's go ahead and press 1 to go to the front view, and I'm going to do let's go from actually a side view or a user view. Let's go E, right click, S. Now I'm going to kind of do an attempt to copy the spacing before. I'm going to actually not go inwards this time, and we'll fix it afterwards. So I'm going to do, that looks about right, maybe a little bigger than that. E, right click S, right about there, E, right click S. How many times did I go in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's a little bit bigger, I think. E, right click S. Now, I have the right number, I believe. Let's make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. We have the right number of rings, or edge loops rather. These are called, anytime you have a loop of edges, in other words, edges that all connect end to end in a ring, it's called an edge loop. Now, what I just did there is really kind of important. If I ever need to select a whole loop of edges, in other words, I want to select all of a bunch of edges at once, what I'm doing is I'm actually holding Alt on my keyboard and right-clicking on one of those edges, and it will connect, or it'll select all of those edges, and now it's really easy for me to move an entire loop. This is also really important for doing things like beveling an edge. We'll get there in a few minutes, but that's that one. If you ever want to select a bunch of edges that are parallel around a mesh, oops, let's see if I can do it on a Mac. Actually, that's the first time I've done that on my new Mac. So all of these edges right here are called an edge ring, and they are all parallel. So you can kind of think like a golden ring, like a wedding ring going around an object. It's a thicker ring than like a loop of string. So an edge ring, you hold Control and Alt. So if I press A to deselect all, and I hold Control Alt, and I right click on an edge, it will select that whole edge ring. If I hold just, I believe it's Alt again, and right click on the edge, it'll select that edge loop. So those are two really, really important things. Try that out, practice it, get used to how you would use it. We'll be using it later in this video. Okay, so we have all the right number of edge loops, but we have to make them the right, or match the concaveness on the other side. So I'm going to select all these inside faces, and I'm going to press Control plus on my keyboard, and it's the plus that's on your number pad. And if you've set up your number row to be like your number pad, like I did in my second video, you can press the Control plus that's next to your backspace or delete key on your keyboard. So if I press Control plus, I'm selecting outwards more from that original selection. Oops. If you mess it up, if you go too much, you don't get the same selection again. So Control plus gets you more, Control minus gets you less. So I'm going to go one less than my largest eye socket, and we're going to drag that in a little bit, Control minus, and then drag this one in a little bit more, Control minus. And I might go from my side view. Now my side view takes me to my right side, but I want to see my left side. So if I press Control 3, it'll take me to the other side. So that looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and drag this one in, Control minus to select less, and Control minus, let's drag this one back. And why does that one look smaller to me? It just does. Maybe I have one fewer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I didn't get the spacing quite right, and that's what the next video will be for, matching everything up correctly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make his nose ridge, or the ridge between his nose, narrower. What I might do is I might just select these ones, and now that can be more pronounced. Maybe I'll grab his this part, and we'll use the move gizmo from the side view, and I'll use the grab key to make it more pronounced. Of course, modeling, if you're modeling like a production quality character, can take a very, very long time. They even get, at companies like Pixar and DreamWorks, they get sculptors in there too to actually make real clay models that the computer artists or the 3D modelers are going to make later on. So this process cannot be squeezed into one YouTube video. Okay, that's those are the eyes right there. Maybe you can make these ones a little bit wider with the S key. I'm going to make more edges along the side of the head. So what I'll do here is I'll hold down Alt and right click on one of these edges. Even though I'm in vertex mode, it still does work. And I'm going to press W, and this time I'm going to use the bevel tool. Now in my last Blender 2.6 video series, I used the bevel tool. I made a whole video about it because I just updated it. And in fact, this tool didn't exist the last time I made this video early on in my Blender 2.6 video series. So that the bevel tool, when you have something selected, it lets you kind of split it into two by pulling out on your mouse away from it. So the W key, I'm going to undo that. We'll Alt right click on that edge loop, W, and then bevel, or you can just go to Control B, and then I'm going to make that a little bit smoother right there. I'll do the same thing over here, Command or Control, or Alt rather, and right click, and Control B to bevel, just to make it a little bit smoother. And of course, if I scroll up while I'm in the middle of beveling, I can make this very smooth if I want to. And of course, I wouldn't want to leave this quite so uneven, especially in the middle here. We're not going to spend time to make any ears, but we're going to leave the head as it is. We got to make a neck and a body. So I'm going to press Control R because what I want to do here is make a neck on the bottom of the head. And right now we don't have any middle line here, and I really want there to be that. And you'll see why in a minute. So Control R and then click and right click right there. While I'm at it though, I'm going to do a Control R right here, and I'm going to select the sides of his nose just to make it a little bit rounder, a little bit more Elmer Fudd-like, and we'll drag those ones up as well. By no means am I happy with this model, but in the next video I'm going to be showing you two modifiers, of course the side-by-side mirror modifier, and how to smooth out your model using another subdivision surface modifier. So stay tuned for that. So I want the neck to kind of stick out from these four faces, but I want the neck to be round as possible right away. So I'm going to go into Vertex Select mode as I am right now and select these four vertexes. Of course, if your model does not exactly match mine, that's quite okay. In fact, that might be a good thing. And I'm going to kind of make these four faces as round as possible. Again, I'm only showing you principles here. You're going to have to do everything on your own. Don't dare follow along with what I'm doing exactly in this video. Make your own. So here's my neck. I'm decently happy with its size, but what I could do is I could scale it down, or I could press E to extrude and then right click and then scale to make kind of a more natural transition for the neck. And then if I want this to be even smoother, what I can do is I can do a Control R and loop cut and do a click and right click right there, and now I can scale this one down to make it smoother between the neck and head. Let's go ahead and go to the front view after I've selected that whole neck base, and we're going to extrude down. So we have a neck. Now the neck's kind of pointing forward a little bit. I don't want that, so let's drag it backwards from the right view. I don't like at all how that, oh boy. Actually, I'm going to do a few Control Z's to get back a few steps, and maybe what I'll do is I'll Control plus a few more times, and I'll deselect these ones and I'll move them back a little bit. Do I want to show you this in this video? Sure. Let's go ahead and go to my bottom view. This is Control 7 to go to the bottom view. Of course, 7 is top, Control 7 is bottom. If I turn on this little button right here, right now this is off. This is called proportional editing. I used the term soft selection a few minutes ago. I think that's more from 3ds Max. If I enable this, what this does is it will grab more faces than I have selected. You see how right now I have only these faces selected, but when I start moving it, you see this gray circle around my selection. That's called the fall off, and that's going to select more faces than I actually have, and it's going to kind of let me stretch my whole model at the same time. This is going to be this can be very dangerous though, if you don't know what you're doing. I'm going to press G, to grab, you're going to see more of my model kind of following along. If I scroll down, less follows along. So I'm always moving my selection, but I'm moving less of the ones around it. If I scroll down, it selects even more of my mesh, so I can really warp it. And this is what the modeler in that Dobby video, or that house elf video that I mentioned a few minutes ago, was doing. He was pushing and pulling a whole lot at the same time. I don't want to pull and push and pull that much at the same time. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe only select these 4, and then we'll go to the side view, and I'm going to grab this one, and we're going to pull it back. And you can scale up and down, or scroll up and down, kind of in real time. And I'll click. If you rotate as well, it also shifts everything else around with it. I just want the base of the neck on the middle approximately of the head. It wasn't. So now it's really important to turn this off. And if you ever accidentally hit the O key, it'll actually turn this on. So the keyboard shortcut for this is O. And for some reason O does not turn it off, or it sometimes does. There we go. If you ever try to move something and then something totally unrelated moves with it, it means you've probably hit the O key by accident. It's called the O problem where I work. So there you go. So the proportional editing is turned off now. Let's go ahead and extrude and right click and scale down and pull this down. Oops, I've grabbed the wrong handle there. Just like before, and Control R to loop cut, and click and right click, and we'll scale this one down a little bit. That was good to me. Let's go back into face select mode and select the bottom faces of the neck, and we're going to extrude down. Looks good to me. I want these to be flat now, so what I can do is I can press S to scale, but I want it to only scale up and down. So after I press S, I can press the Z key, and that will let me scale only up and down, which means I can really emphasize the unevenness of that of my selection. Or if I scale or pull all the way down to the middle, it'll make it even less. But if I press 0, it'll make it totally flat. So again, that was S, Z, 0, and then enter. Or SZ, enter if you're American. SZ, 0, enter. Okay, so let's go ahead and extrude down the body. So I'm going to press E, and the body will be right there for the shoulders. I'm going to extrude out the sides of the neck for the shoulders. So from the front view, oops, we're going to press E and go out sideways. Now if I want to be precise, I would press E and then maybe 5. Oops, definitely not it. 1, no, I gotta go back a few steps further. E, 1, sure. Select this side. Go to the front view, E, -1. Oops, no, of course, it's just E1. There we go. If I don't like how much it extrudes, I can select both sides at the same time. And if I press S, it'll scale, but then I only want to scale on the x-axis. So I'll press S, of course, and then X. And now I'm only scaling side to side, so I can make it any size that I want. SX again, maybe a little bit smaller. I'm going to make a loop cut around each one of the shoulders, and I'll press SX 0 to make it totally flat. Control R, click, right click, SX 0, enter to make it totally flat again, just like we did with the bottom of the neck. And now I'm going to extrude downwards, but I actually might make the front of his chest flat first because we have this kind of divot along the front. So SY0, enter, select these ones, SY0, enter, and we'll want to play with the front and the back of the neck a little bit later, but we have a flat front and back and bottom right now, so we are looking pretty good. Let's select the bottom again, and we'll do an extrusion downwards with the E key, of course. Let's go down as far as we think we need to. Now this is where you could be a little bit more fancy and scale it side to side to give them more of like a tapered look. And then you can do a Control R loop cut and make as many cuts by scrolling up in here. I'm going to make it as even as possible, and then right click to put it in the middle. Let's go ahead and extrude 2 legs, but before I do that, I'm going to make them a little bit more rounded by putting them, by kind of moving and pushing these vertexes. Let's grab these 2 and putting them like right about there. Let's grab all of those and all 3 of these and pull them out a little bit. Let's extrude both legs at the same time. That's pretty easy to do. Select all of those faces, all 8, and then extrude down as far as we think we need to. There we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make the knee joints first. So I'll do a Control R for a loop cut, put my mouse right about there, and scroll up once to make 2, and then right click to put it in the middle. Now, as soon as you do a loop cut, again you get options over here, and you can slide the loop cut, but I think you should also be able to, Control R. You know what I might do instead? I might just put 1 cut in the middle, and then Control B to bevel it, and then I can decide, You know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to bevel it right away. Control R, click, right click, Control R, click, right click, and now I'm going to do a hold. I'm going to hold Alt and Shift, and I'm going to select this edge loop as well. Of course, normally you just hold Alt, but I want to keep this selection as well, so I'll hold Alt and Shift, get both of those, and do a Control B and bevel them at the same time. Beautiful. Okay, because we want a knee joint that has 3 edge loops. If you ever do continue on with the series and make bones, you'll see why 3 edge loops is really important at any joint. Let's go ahead and make some more edge loops with Control R, and then click and right click. And if I really wanted to spend time, I could taper these legs and make them all muscular. We're not going to get there in this video. Let's go ahead and make some feet. I'm going to extrude down and then extrude outwards. Let's go ahead and make these feet a little bit nicer looking though. Let's do a little bit of an S. In fact, we're going to have to scale them individually. Just kind of eyeball it here. Control R. Control R. Let's move the top faces up on the feet. Let's do a loop cut around each foot. I accidentally pressed Control T there. I'm not sure if that actually did anything or not. I hope it didn't. I'm having a hard time selecting right now. Trying to rush through this video. Let's go ahead and grab all 4 front edges and pull that out. And I'm going to scale them down a little bit to make it not quite so blocky looking. This is a pretty basic person, but you kind of see where I'm going with this. This is not at all how I would model a photoreal person by any means, but it kind of gives you an idea of the process, what I'm doing here to make a person, a character. Let's go ahead and make the, actually I don't like what I just did there. Let's go ahead and make the arm stick out. I'm going to go into edge select mode, do an Alt right click on this edge loop, and we're going to move it up because I only want my arms to be that thick, to be approximately square, approximately. Let's go ahead and do a loop cut right here, and I'm going to grab these 4 vertices and scale them down to make a little bit more of a circle on that side. Same thing goes on this side. And let's extrude outwards from the front. And I'm going to press E to enter. That's not long enough, but we'll scale it. After we get both arms, E to enter. And now that we have this end selected, I'm going to select this end as well. And now if I press S and then X, I can scale them out pretty evenly, or exactly evenly actually. This is my character in a T pose. So when you model a character, actually, you'd want to do it in a T pose, but more likely than not, you'd want to do it more something like that. And of course, if you put it down kind of in this direction, you might want to rotate these, the ends of his arms, but this is just a very simple example. So SX to make this a little bit shorter. Do I go on and do hands? I'm not going to do hands in this video. Of course, you'd want to make the wrists narrower. So you want to select each one and make it a little bit narrower. And modeling hands is something that maybe you can do a Google search for. I'm not going to get into this video. I'm going to show you how to make that, the mouth that kind of concaves in. The same process as with the eyes. You want to select everything. In fact, I would want to spend some time and make everything here a little bit more even so your vertexes aren't bunched up so much. I don't like it all the way that this is the topology. In other words, the layout of the faces and edges and vertexes. The topology is disgusting on this video, but that's okay for now. Let's do an E, right click, S. Now I don't like quite how it's narrower on the top and bottom than on the sides, so I'm going to use my scale gizmo. We're going to scale it to make it shorter, but make it wider as well. And we're going to keep it pretty much almost the same size, but maybe from the side view I'll rotate it a little bit because that's just the way I want to do it. And let's do an E, right click, and then pull it back a little bit, scale it inwards so we have kind of a mouth. I don't like exactly how this is pointing right there, so we're going to try to make that as even as possible. We are missing kind of the corners of the mouth right now, so I'll do a loop cut right there through the middle of the mouth, and that way we can get this corner of the mouth a little bit outward. How am I going to do that? Let's select both of these, SX, and then scale outwards. Do I like that? Not really, but this is just a demo. We're going to fix these vertexes, which are kind of sticking up too far right now. Let's go from the side view to be a little bit more precise. Let's pull them both back a little bit, be up a little bit. There we go. You see what I'm doing here? I'm going to select more of these front faces. And we'll do a few more extrusions. So E, right click, and then S. Now we can go a little bit faster. What people do sometimes to make a mouth that's more correct, and they're going to be adding teeth later, is they make another one like that, and then they'll do another E, right click, and then they'll move this one back and actually make it bigger this time to make a hollow in the inside of the mouth, to make it actually a big kind of concave area. I'm going to press Z to go into wireframe mode, and you can see this now, this concave area that I've created. But before I make it, I'm going to make it kind of bigger immediately. And then extrude backwards, or pull backwards after I E and then right click. Let's rotate this to make it flat. I might do a loop cut in the middle, or actually two, and then scale those both up. And now I have a hole inside of the mouth. It's too wide right now, obviously, so I'm going to scale it down to make it narrower. Of course, some of the other ones were already pretty wide, but that's okay. Let's press Z to go back into solid view, and I'll press Tab to go back into object mode. That's my person right now. It's very, very basic. It's a very, let's say, ugly person, but if you wanted to model something like a Lego person, this is the process in which you could do it by. Using tools like extrude, the loop cut tool, bevel, subdivide, and pushing and pulling vertexes in a similar fashion to in this video, you can pretty much create any simple character that you like. In the next video, we're going to be talking about how to, of course, make both sides of the character the same and model your character twice as fast, essentially, using the mirror modifier. And we're going to show you how to make your character look really smooth and much, much nicer very, very quickly. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.